everything is a game.
I really resonate with that.
Why are people not applying this?
It would have been incredible.
And the stress is gone.
Nothing really matters that much.
Instead of setting your alarm to wake up, set your alarm to go to bed.
I wake up in the morning and I want to do that.
It's about obsession.
Not a hell yes, and it's a hell no.
It's not about focus, it's about putting energy into something.
Finding the thing you really burn for, and then it will feel effortless.
Most people don't have a growth problem, they have a design problem.
For me, I just always ask the question, why?
You don't want to wake up one day realizing you impressed everyone else but yourself.
This is the most incredible time to be alive.
Why would you like to trade your life with mine?
Maurice, pleasure to have you on the show. For our audience, I'll quickly say a few words about you and then we'll jump right into the line of questioning. You really have seen a lot in your life. You went from being an electrician to kind of growing in the companies to being in the C-level, on the boards of companies, then an investor, then a strategic advisor for executives, for startups. Honestly, when I ask you something in private, you always seem to have the answer, which is brilliant. And you seem to have an answer that is not so obvious. But if you think about it, actually, very oftentimes you're really right. And today I want to explore a bit the themes of growth. I want to explore maybe also a bit about you. I want to explore how you tackle things. We have really interesting things prepared. But the most pressing and most interesting question, I think, is really in terms of growing, what kind of systems you use, what kind of mechanics you have, what kind of things, protocols you follow really to achieve the growth that you have achieved, because I think it's quite remarkable.
First of all, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
And I think most people don't have a growth problem. They have a design problem. They're optimizing on broken systems. And I think the easiest way is to take you to 2017, because it wasn't like I figured out life. Thanks for the compliments, but I'm still figuring out life like everyone else.
He bribed me first.
But in December 2017, I was in Sydney. And towards the end of the year, I usually do some exercise for myself to figure out how the year went and what I'm going to do next. And I went to a restaurant. I don't recall the exact name of the restaurant, but it is up in this Sky Tower, I think it's called, in Sydney. It's a 200 or 300 meter story building. And up there's like a beautiful restaurant with like glass ceiling, and you just look all over the city. And I was probably the only one in there alone, eating my dinner with my notebook, sitting there, writing down my stuff, trying to figure out a little bit more about life. And after some time, I've realized that someone else, a couple tables next to me, was sitting there alone as well. So we naturally struck up a conversation afterwards, and he joined my table, and we started a conversation that went on for probably 5 or 6 hours.
Oof. Okay.
And that completely shattered my perspective on how I approach things. And one thing I realized immediately was he was very well dressed. He was in his mid-50s. He was wearing a Richard Mille watch, probably, I don't know, 500K, 1 million. So obviously very successful from a money standpoint or from a status standpoint. And throughout the conversation, I realized he was very successful on our society standards. So he had the businesses, he had the family, the children, he had money, he had success. Like a lot of things went right in his life to our standard. And after a couple of hours, he said something very surprising to me. He said, if I could trade places with you, I would do it in a heartbeat. And the funny thing is, I laughed it off because I thought it was a joke.
How old were you then?
I was 2017, so I was 28. So I laughed it off and thought he was joking, but he was dead serious. And then I asked him, why? why would you like to trade your life with mine, especially at that moment? And then he answered, because if I knew what you know now, I would structure my life completely different. And after that, some of the most interesting things he told me, like how he structured like his life, his businesses, how he approaches life, what kind of systems he's using, what kind of mental models he's using. And that was always into science, into mental models, into frameworks, like learning how to optimize, being better, faster. And then I realized it's less about being better than actually being right. And after some time, like one of the most interesting things he mentioned was everything is a game in life. Everything. So he called it games. I nowadays call it a setup, but he called it games. Like you play the money game, you play the career game, you play the relationship game, the marriage game, the dating game. Like everyone is playing games. But some you can choose to play, some you need to play. For example, health. You cannot not play the health game. It will affect you sooner or later. And every game has a system. And every system has rules. Every system has action items. In every system, you can use leverage, different forms of leverage. And you can interconnect your systems. And that sounds very abstract, but I think I would like to do an exercise with you, probably. That would be a great idea.
Take over. It's your podcast now. Let's fucking do it.
But before we finish off, like one thing that burned into my brain, what he was saying, just to maybe start off into the conversation, was you don't want to wake up one day realizing you impressed everyone else but yourself. That's what he left me with. Like, he didn't leave me with this, but he mentioned that during the conversation, and that was really something that stuck with me. You don't want to wake up realizing you impressed everyone else but yourself. And
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and just maybe giving the ball back to you is like, what kind of games do you think, like, are you aware of you playing games, and what kind of games are you consciously playing, and what kind of games are you maybe neglecting?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I completely agree on the point that people play their games and they do it for other people very often. And when they wake up in the morning, it's not really what they want after all. And the things they don't really feel like you would think they feel, you know, when you have X, whatever X might be, you know, when you reached this money amount on your company bank account, you reached this so-and-so, whatever, it actually all doesn't matter, essentially. And it's much more, what are you hungry for, and what you really, what gets you up in the morning, you know, what you really want to push on. And the way I think about it, yes, also in terms of games, absolutely. I think I can speak for myself, I have the family game, right? I have the kind of the relationship game, and I don't mean kind of romantic, more like for friends, right, and so on. I have the business game, which is probably the game I play the most, and it's probably one of the most fun ones. Together with the family game, for me, those are kind of my big values. I have my own game, kind of the personal development game. That just being healthy, feeling good, actually. And also understanding that it's in your head. Everything is in your head. And you can really, with the right protocols, with the right things, with the right measures, with the right routines, you can change it. What other games do I have? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, of course, the health game, but the health game is really, I would say it's more also my own game in a way. It's kind of the personal bucket. And what I really see for me, when I find something that I really burn for in any of these games, the ball is kind of being moved forward without any efforts, you know? And I think for me, if you are on this abstract level, I think It's really about finding the thing you really, 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 really burn for, and then it will feel effortless, you know. And Steve Jobs, one of my kind of idols in some ways, but really completely opposite in some other ways. He said, right, when you wake up in the morning and really for too many days you look in the mirror and you're like, what the hell am I even doing today? It's maybe time to change, you know. So if you really have to push too hard, it feels like too much of a work. You don't need to change it today or tomorrow, but just consider, okay, maybe this is not the right way.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Interesting. I'm trying to break it down to 4 pillars in my life. I always try to make it simple. And one pillar is the health pillar. Another one is the personal development or personal growth pillar I'm playing. The other one is relationships and purpose. And within
no work in there.
I don't have work in there because for me it's about personal growth. Because business is just part of my identity. It's not my identity because otherwise if I lose the business or if something happens to a business, I would be too attached to it with my person.
Fair enough.
With my personality.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with the concept of entropy and negative entropy? Negentropy or negentropy?
Well, I know it a bit from, what is it, physics or chemistry? I don't remember.
Thermodynamics or information
Basically,
theory.
entropy is chaos.
Yeah, entropy is chaos.
Yeah.
So every system, and when we look at those pillars in your life, at health, at your business, when you look at your business or at your health, it's your metabolism in your health is negative entropy because it tries to create a system to grow. So it's trying to work against chaos. And the same happens in your business. You have to put energy into your business. So you have structure, you have revenue, like systems, processes that work, that needs energy. You need to put in energy. If you stop putting energy into this system, into your business, negative, and this will be negative entropy. Otherwise, entropy applies again. And slowly there will be disorder again. And disorder actually means expansion. And that's also a reason why I don't believe in focus. Doesn't mean like there is no situation where you can use focus, but everyone's preaching focus nowadays. But have you seen successful people, like really successful people that were just focused on one thing?
It's more about they pick an array of things and 2 or 3 are really going to work out.
Yeah. And that's why I think you need like this entropy and this negative entropy in your life. And as soon as you don't put energy into one of those areas, negative entropy will apply. For example, if you don't focus your energy on health, if you don't eat healthy, if you don't work out, if you don't sleep well, most probably there will be some kind of disorder. Your metabolism won't work the same way anymore. And slowly there will be some diseases and some negative consequences appearing in your life. And that applies to your health, that applies to your relationship. It also applies to your business. If you don't focus on your business, a lot of people say you probably are going to decline. But it's not about focus, it's about putting energy into something. And that's why I think you're not always able to focus on one thing, but on different areas in your life. And you should, because what do you think of is like, when I ask you, what is the opposite? What is the opposite of focus? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, really the chaos, actually, for me.
Okay, maybe now you're biased, but
probably
most people will probably say distraction nowadays. Like, I'm focused or I'm distracted, right? But it's actually not true. The opposite of focus is expansion. So
in a way, chaos. I was right.
In a way, chaos. Exactly. The universe is expanding. Yes. It's entropy. It's chaos. So you need both sometimes, and that's why I'm always saying, like, for creativity and for starting something new to grow, you need entropy, you need chaos in your life. But then you need to put energy into this, structure those systems in a very careful way so you're able to grow within those systems. And then there are tactics how you can apply to your health or to your business, to your personal growth, or to your purpose.
I think in this conversation now we have the 4 buckets, right? These 4 systems, these 4 games. I think it will be really interesting now for the viewers is if we go through each and every bucket and you walk us through how you do it. Because I see it a bit, as an external observer, many things you seem to be doing work out great, whether it's, you're a healthy guy, that this is the most important thing, you're successful, and all of the societal things kind of they work in your favor. And it would be interesting to really go tackle it kind of game by game. Let's start with the most important one, the health. I think without health, you have nothing. So what's like, do you have a system for health? What do you do? For me, it has a lot to do with routines. Like you are kind of what you do repeatedly, So how do you see that?
Yeah, exactly the same way. If we dive into health, I subcategorize it in 3 areas again. For me, it's physical health, it's mental health, and it's spiritual health. But that's up to you if you want to choose different areas, whatever you feel comfortable with. And when I look at physical health, that's why I'm always saying, like, every day, push your body, stretch your mind, fuel properly, and recover well. Those 4 things. And then you're going to be a healthy person from a physical standpoint, at least. And that means I'm working out usually 6 times a week. It's
what do you do there? Just gym stuff?
No, 3 to 4 times a week I do resistance training, so lifting weights. Then I try to do more conditioning. I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. I'm not the best at it. Then I also do just play games, different games from squash, volleyball, football, basketball, whatever.
I'm god tier at paddle. Should go play paddle together once.
Let's do it. And from like the health perspective, then I always advise to measure, because if you don't measure, you never know if you're well off or you're not. So get your blood work done. If you want to go over, you know me a little bit. I went completely over the top with measuring everything from DEXA scans to like measuring my bone density, measuring my body fat with X-ray, with doing around 65 blood markers every 3 months. Then I measured my sleep recovery with Whoop and everything. But in the end, it comes down to intuition. And what is intuition? Intuition is nothing else than improving the knowledge with data. So if you apply, for example, I think you're using Whoop now, right? So
right here, you don't see it, but it's on the biceps, on the very small biceps I have.
Whoop is something I would always like this. Whoop and Aura rings, whatever you take, just get the subscription for 1 year or 2 years and improve your intuition. Because yes, most people say like, I don't need an app to tell me that I didn't sleep well. No, you don't need that, but probably you just need the awareness that if you're drinking alcohol, if you're going to bed late, or you have irregular sleep times, that is just going to disrupt your recovery. So you're probably more conscious about your approach to health afterwards. But I absolutely agree, you don't need this for life. Just take it for some time. As long as you're not like an athlete or something, you don't need to measure all the time. But you will have some surprising results. And I always like to be my own guinea pig. So I went through all the research, like with sauna. You should go to sauna, and 2 rows, 5 times a week for 15 minutes, with 8 to 15 minutes with a 5 to 10 minute break and all those kind of things. I tried it on my body and I didn't feel didn't see any improvement. based on data, based on my blood markers. So it didn't work for me. So still doing it every now and then when I go to a spa and just enjoy, but I wouldn't do it to improve my health, at least not at this point in my life.
And what's the craziest thing you've tried in this guinea pig experiment? And what worked surprisingly well, maybe, that people are not aware of yet?
I think I have to disappoint you here because it is the obvious thing that actually works.
Right?
It is stop drinking alcohol, because alcohol really
Takes your focus.
Yeah, it takes your focus. It disrupts your sleep, and especially your restorative sleep. Then it's regular sleep patterns.
Basically all the basics, right?
Like just get the basics right. It's like the 3-4 basics that you need to get right for your physical health. Work out regularly. You don't need to go all in like Andrew Huberman, even though like people call Andrew Huberman crazy for putting up his fitness protocol, where I think he works out like 14 hours a week, and people are making fun of it, like, who has 14 hours a week? But it's like we have 116 8 hours a week, which means 14 hours is probably something like 8%, a little bit more than 8% of your week. So you wouldn't sacrifice 8% of your week to stay healthy for a very long time, because obviously Andrew Huberman knows what he's doing. But at the same time, I think you need to enjoy it.
But isn't there also a tipping point? Because some people really feel that if they work out more than 3 or 4 times a week, it really almost tips to a way where, okay, I'm really overusing my body. And I see such examples, people who really, they were fit, quote unquote fit, right, the whole life, and really were pushing really hard. But then at 50, they have problems with their back, they have problems with their knee, they have this, they have that. Isn't like there a sweet spot where that is actually much lower than most people think? Or what's your experience here? What's the data on this, in your opinion?
That's a personal opinion. I'm not an expert in this topic, but I would assume they were just applying the wrong techniques while training and probably got injured several times. That's my assumption. But if you're doing it properly, I think it's only going to help.
So even if you 6-7 times a week?
I don't see a problem. The question is, are you recovering well afterwards? Do you have enough time to recover, or are you pushing too hard? I mean, if you're pushing to the absolute limit every single time, it's probably not healthy. But just movement. I mean, I've recently read some post somewhere saying like, sadly, working out 3 times a week, surrounding yourself with amazing people, eating healthy, and going to bed at regular sleep times actually works. And I mean, obviously it does. Everyone actually knows, but still they're not doing it. So why? Why are people not applying this? And I think it's because it's a shift. So the biggest struggle I had was when I stopped drinking, and I stopped drinking for, like, full disclaimer, I didn't stop drinking for I stopped drinking for 1.5 years, and then I every now and then started to have a glass of wine or a drink again. And I think one of the most difficult things is social gatherings, because the most extreme thing I did during applying these health techniques was, because I wanted to test on myself, I went to bed at 9:15 p.m. for 3 months in a row.
Waking up at 4 a.m.
Waking up at 5.
5.
Yeah, because back then, so I was actually able to improve for everyone that knows a little bit about HRV and restorative sleep, I was able to improve my HRV from around 70 to around 140. And I was able to improve my restorative sleep from 2.5 hours a night. So that's the deep sleep phase, and the REM sleep. Yeah. Thank you.
And you did that just with switching your bedtime?
I switched my bedtime. I stopped drinking, and I went to bed at I always set an alarm. Like that's a amazing advice someone gave me once. Is instead of setting your alarm to wake up, set your alarm to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I had to do it because I was like, okay, I need to wind down. So 8:15, I need to set an alarm. So I need to be back home. And that was kind of difficult on a Friday evening, telling your friends after dinner, like, bye guys. And you actually know it's like they're having a good time.
Yeah.
And you're leaving now.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, like, do you really want to miss out on those kind of events? And I would say 90% of the time, yes, you can miss out. And you should, but sometimes it's worth it. And you should join and have some fun and enjoy life. That's
so to summarize, in the health bucket, basically you're just very, very strictly applying all the basics in a way. I mean, nothing fancy, just all the basics. And that seems to do the trick quite well, because that's honestly what I do. And by no means an athlete or anything. And I just, have your 8 hours of sleep, try to eat more or less healthy. For me, this is like, try to eat 70%-ish healthy and just treat yourself for the other 30 and you'll be just fine. I think it does probably doesn't really matter what you do then. I mean, unless you really take you eat some poison or whatever. But and there's really not much more to it. Just try to minimize stress. That's probably also something we didn't cover right now too much, but minimizing stress is probably also a pretty good indicator for actual health, at least for me. Do you have any protocols, any kind of winding down mechanism? If you had a really stressful day, really everything went as it shouldn't, basically. And what do you do then in the evening to really wind down, stress-wise?
Meditation. So
any specific one or just?
No, just you don't need an app. You don't need anything. You just need yourself and just sit down, close your eyes, breathe, concentrate on your breath. And
breath, very powerful.
And just like go for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I think it will calm you down. And that's also, for me, it's part of it is also connected to spiritual health with stress. Because I think spiritual health, and it doesn't need to be a religion. It's just like maybe just knowing that you will be fine in life, whatever happens, and just trusting the process. That's for me like the spiritual health part. And I obviously like to learn about different religions, but stress is a very difficult topic still for me. There were times even last year where I was very stressed. And one exercise I use though that I think is very helpful is from Mo Gaudat. He calls it the unstressable exercise. And he does it every week. So I apply this as well. Every Friday, it takes like 5 minutes. First, you write down what was stressing you this week. So was there something you can mention on this podcast that stressed you this week, for example?
Software, probably in one of my companies, we had an unexpected software bug where basically we released a new feature, and this new feature then kind of allowed for longer times of recording. This longer times of recording kind of then went and broke pretty much everything kind of, and that's just not great in a production app. But then I just try to focus on fixing it rather than kind of trying to cool me down. And then once it's fixed, then I try to really rewire and relax a bit. But then for me, I probably suffer a bit from the disease called I can never stop doing anything. I always need to do something. Even if I just finished a big thing, I'm not here and going to say, oh, wow, this was great. I'm going to be here and say, okay, what's next? And maybe it's good, maybe it's terrible. I'm not sure, actually. So far, I think results-wise, it works. You just keep pushing. But yeah, maybe it's not the most sustainable thing after all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have like one problem, one stressful situation that arose through something that you couldn't have controlled in your life. So the second thing you could now ask yourself is, was this something that you can eliminate in the future? If so, what do you have to do? What do you have to implement into your system, into your business, that this isn't going to happen anymore? Or can you take yourself out of the situation? Or is there something you can minimize? It's a super simple exercise, but you just write down a couple things that stress you this week, even if it's someone was getting on your nerves. Like, is this something that happens in a certain meeting all the time? Or maybe it's like just a team dynamic. And that happened to me before, like years ago. I realized always in a certain meeting, there was like, I felt stressed or unease during or after that meeting. And if I had known about this little exercise, this unstressable exercise, I would have just much earlier applied this and realized, hey, I don't need to be at this meeting. Or maybe let's just change the dynamic of this meeting. Like, let's cut this meeting into 2 pieces and approach it differently. And the stress is gone. And the work still gets done. Sometimes it's just the non-obvious things that are still very simple to apply.
And it's funny, sometimes even the smallest things that you anyway cannot influence or do whatever, they stress you out so much, even though very objectively, it doesn't really matter, you know. What I like to do there is kind of this worst case analysis. You know, I kind of built a decision tree of, okay, if this happens, then that. If this happens, then that. What are the options here? What can happen here? And then at the end, you see this whole kind of decision tree of all possible outcomes, and you realize it doesn't matter. Would I remember this specific thing if the worst case happened in a month? Would I really feel still bad about it in a month? And very oftentimes the answer is no. Actually, nothing really matters that much. And if it really does matter, then yeah, you go ahead and full on fix it. Full on, you know. But that's also kind of one little exercise where you really just go down the decision tree. You try to figure out what's the worst thing that's going to happen, could happen. And maybe it will happen. You don't know. Maybe something slightly less worse, slightly more worse that you cannot even imagine. But you will kind of see in what range of bad will it be, and it will be just fine.
It's also something you learn with time. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So going back to this unstressable exercise, that's probably more something on the mental health part. But obviously everything is interconnected in those systems, because if you're mentally exhausted and stressed, it's very difficult for you to have good workouts, in my opinion.
But what are the symptoms for being stressed out, for kind of feeling, okay, I need a time off? Like, how do you feel those symptoms? At least in you, probably it's very personal, but I don't know, where do you feel it? For example, I kind of feel it here above my stomach for whatever reason. I'm stressed, don't ask. No idea why. And then if I really wind down, it completely goes away. And where do you feel this?
Most people feel it either in their area in the stomach area, right, or in their chest, or even in their throat.
But why is that? What is happening?
I think I'm not 100% sure. I think it's a parasympathetic reaction that we're having. So your stress is felt in your body, but I'm not 100% certain how it works. I just feel my body better, but I wasn't using data. So actually the data was telling me I'm stressed. My biomarkers were telling me, hey, your body is inflamed. Your central nervous system is stressed. And then from data, I learned how I felt, or I could improve my feelings. Doesn't mean like everyone needs to do it. Some people really feel their body better. That's absolutely true. So not everyone needs to use data to approach these things. And you don't need to go all in like Brian Johnson on measuring everything, because I don't think this is a fulfilling life either.
I think he's doing it more to prove a point. Probably he knows very well that you can do 20% of the things he's doing and get 80% of the results, probably. But I think he really looks at it as he's the guinea pig now, you know. And this is, oddly enough, it's what drives him forward, you know, I think.
Yeah, it's he's definitely an interesting character, and I appreciate that he's putting all his information online. And I think he's also, with controversy, obviously, inspiring a lot of people to try it as well. But at the same time, I think you have to look at your life from a philosophical standpoint as well. So there are, like James Clear, I think, said that you can look at your life from different angles. One angle is you can extend it biologically. So you're just living longer. That's what Brian Johnson is trying to do. Or you just put more life into the time that is given to you. And I think that's something that Brian Johnson is missing. So he's not putting more life into the time that is given. He's actually trying to avoid it. He's avoiding the sun. He's avoiding having a good night out. I try to avoid it as well most of the time, but not all the time. So I think those two things you have to consider as well for your life. And talking about time as well, when we're drifting off a little bit, we're going back to the topic of health afterwards. Time is just a man-made concept as well. And someone once said, exchange the word time from now on with life. Change the word completely, because it is made up and time is life. It's literally your life. If we're spending time, we're spending our life now on this podcast right now. Not our time, our life. But then you're starting to apply that differently in social situations. I don't want to spend my life with those people. Not my time, my life. It really changes the meaning. It gets a little bit more dramatic, and I think some people really need this. And going back to health, the mental health part is something that has a lot to do with stress for me. It was mainly stress related, because happily I never was a person that was particularly struggling with like sadness or depression or anything. And another thing is the spiritual health that I discovered too late.
What does that encompass for you? Is it like more religious? Is it more kind of part of a meditation practice? Is it something completely different? How do you approach this?
It's more, for me, meditation is part of spiritual health, because it's more about the trusting the higher power as well, the universe, that everything will be fine. And you just need to play life in a good way with your values, with your vision, and the ups and the downs are part of it. And this Chinese, I think it's a Chinese proverb with the farmer and the horse and the sun. Have you heard of this?
I don't think so.
It's a Chinese farmer. I think he has some horses, and suddenly the next day, one of the horses brings another horse back to his farm. So he has now one more horse at his farm, and his neighbor is telling him like, "Oh, you're so lucky. Now you have one more horse." Then the next day, his son is riding that new horse, and he's falling off that horse, and he's breaking that leg. He's breaking his leg. So the neighbor is coming back to the farmer again and telling him like, "Oh, you're so unlucky that your son broke his leg." Like the next day, war is breaking out, and the military is trying to get everyone into the army, but they couldn't, because his son's leg was broken. And the farmer always, like, you know where this is going. I'm completely butchering it, but the farmer is always answering to these questions with like, maybe yes, maybe not. So he's not judging. He's actually just experiencing. And that's quite difficult, I think, nowadays, because we all like to judge, but especially because just experiencing or even critically thinking for yourself is so difficult nowadays. It's so much easier to just judge.
Oh yeah. And people are conditioned from the very early age just to be in the system and to believe whatever they're being told, essentially. And that then continues even worse in the adult life. Like really, if you try to look at the media landscape, if you really just follow kind of the mainstream media, and if you look at a clip, whatever clip it might be, and then you look, okay, how was this reported actually then? If you didn't see the clip and you would just see the kind of the news coverage, you would think, oh, wow, this guy is the worst, actually. But then if you look at the whole clip, you're like, oh, wow, no, these guys are the worst. Because the way they are portraying this, the way they are saying this is absolutely terrible. And I think that's really the big problem of our time. People don't think anymore. They just blindly believe. If they hear something long enough, they blindly believe and they just follow. And that actually, if you look at history, has ended up in really, really bad situations a couple of times, right? Look at the Second World War, look at many, many other wars before that. If people just stop thinking, it's going to end up really, really, really bad. And yeah.
Do you think people are applying or getting more into this herd mindset and just following each other, or are people rather getting smarter and applying their knowledge to?
I think the gap is just getting bigger. The gap is getting bigger. You know, the people who are actually thinking about whatever, it doesn't even, let's not go into topics because then you will get polarization. People are thinking either really freely and actually questioning things, or they are extremely hardcore just believing whatever they're told. And that applies to anything. And what I see started maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there's more and more people really actually thinking and questioning and not just blindly believing. But at the same time, on that extreme, you also have the other extreme where people just go really all in. And if enough people say, yeah, this person is this, then this person is this, you know? And I think this is not a good development, actually, because sometimes really, when I talk with people, like the things they're telling me are really like, you need to really rebalance your information input. What you are saying here is objectively complete nonsense. But then the problem is you can't even argue back, because yes, you argue back with facts, but then they just have their talking points and they repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. So it's actually a good question. I would like to throw that back. How do you think we could solve that in our society? You know, kind of solving the fact that people are just blindly believing whatever they hear or see or get told. And how can we actually remove these echo chambers, you know, from society?
I think relearning. If bringing it down to one point, it's relearning. The skill of being able to forget things again. Because have you heard of the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve? The Ebbinghaus forgetting curve is quite interesting because it's about learning. Because most people talk about like this learning curve, right? Mm-hmm. But actually it's a forgetting curve. When you hear about a new concept, about a new topic for the first time, and you don't recall this information within a short amount of time, within a couple of hours, within a day, you're probably going to forget 70 to 80% of the acquired knowledge within a day. Mm-hmm. So you're going to remember only a slight amount of the information that was given to you. So even like people listening to this right now, if they're not like taking notes, writing it down and listening to this again tomorrow, or applying the knowledge actually, they probably going to lose at least 70% of this information within a very short period of time. That's why just consuming more information doesn't really help. Mm. And that's where like the forgetting curve is quite interesting. And if people would use that in their life more often, it probably can change something. So it's a recall exercise. It's called spaced repetition, because the more often you hear something, the easier you can recall it. And that's why it's so difficult, though, to forget old patterns. So if you learn something for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and you applied that knowledge over and over again, and now some new things are emerging, some AI stuff, you probably, like, your knowledge is going to be challenged. And you need to be able to relearn what's actually the state of the art of applying certain things in your life in 2025.
Actually, weird flex, but the way I learn these days is really with these AI voice modes. I just talk to them while I drive, sometimes for hours. It sounds really weird, but you can ask all the stupid questions that are usually not permitted. No matter how stupid it sounds to a human, the AI will answer very politely and really explain the concept in detail. And I think for me, the way I learn the best is really, or I think the way anyone learns the best is interacting with the knowledge and asking questions, maybe stupid questions, maybe smart questions. It doesn't really matter. But this is for me really the most powerful tool. If you give me a task, Enrico, learn about this topic, I will be an expert within 2 hours just by talking to AI. Before, for me, this was YouTube. Literally, I'm an kind of self-learner. I learned everything I do is kind of self-taught, not even self-thought, but just literally going on YouTube and figuring it out. And now that just has been multiplied and amplified with AI, really. Like, you go on YouTube, get the basics, then you maybe, this video explains this video explains that, and let me bridge the gap with AI and let me combine them. And it's incredible. Like, there's never been a better time to learn, actually. But then, of course, you also go into the issue where, how biased are those AI models? Do they tell you what you really want to learn? That's why actually I really love this Grok model. The Grok model, if you tell it, please insult the shit out of me, it will do it with pleasure, Not that it's a good thing, but just you really get the unfiltered raw version. And I think we need to go back to people can decide for themselves what is good and what is bad. So we should just give them the tools and trust that they will make the right decision.
Yeah, but even with using LLMs, I think you need to understand that it is a probabilistic model. So it's not a deterministic model. So it just should be right. It should be on the generalistically right side, but it doesn't mean it is right. And there are a lot of assumptions in there. There's a lot of bias. We have hundreds of different biases in our life. Confirmation bias being one of the most famous ones. And those, you don't get those biases out of LLMs. And as you know, I'm using AI in a lot of things in my life. But at the same time, I personally would advise everyone who has children to not give them access to an LLM until they are at a certain age.
Interesting. Let's debate this. Why do you think that?
They need to develop their own thinking.
Yeah, okay.
And the thing is, you don't need to think anymore, because you just outsource your thinking and your decision making to an LLM. You don't have to do the hard thing anymore. And that's the connections, that's the interconnections in your brain that have to be like, you learn by failure. If you fail at something so hard, that's why sometimes I can tell you, don't invest like this, don't try this at business. But until you make some mistakes you have to do by yourself, and afterwards you're not going to do it anymore. It needs to hurt.
I agree. Probably my view is a bit wrong on this, because I had this kind of normal path and I had to use my brain normally. And now for me, like where I am right now, the AI is like sent from heaven. Like, yes, I have the critical thinking. Yes, I have this systematic approach to things in general, right? As kind of thought by the legacy system. And if you have this plus AI, the things you can do are infinite. It's actually an interesting question. I don't think we have the answer here. Maybe you're right. Maybe kids will turn out terrible if they really have too much AI. Maybe they will turn out great. It's now, after thinking about it, I'm probably 60-65% more on your side, where you say, okay, it might be good to first develop some kind of reasoning and thinking steps beforehand. But it's difficult to say. I mean, our kids are literally going to grow up with this, no matter what, I think. And you could also kind of argue the other side where you say, okay, if they don't do it, they have a huge competitive disadvantage, right? Because the new studying, the new learning, the new applying, the new working will be with AI. So on the one side, you can argue, yes, they should be exposed as early as possible to actually get the hang of it. But also I see your point where you say, without actually learning the basics first, without AI, they wouldn't be able to do that.
I'm not black and white on this. So I would still advise parents to give them like the possibility to work on a project with AI. Don't get me wrong. Like get your business, try to build a business, try to build something with AI, even when you're 8 years old, 7 years old, 5 years old. The earlier, the better. But what you're doing is, like, as you mentioned it like perfectly before, is like you're outsourcing the reasoning. And I wouldn't outsource, like I would want my children to be able to develop their own reasoning process and not outsource it to an LLM. So not that they're talking to ChatGPT or Grok or Claude all the time and just like, hey, tell me how to do this, tell me how to do that. I mean, literally there's no meaning for homework anymore. But you're able to build something much faster. You're able to build something alone.
If you could design a school now, because schools, obviously, they need to change, right? I mean, if I remember back in my school, it's been a while now, but if I remember back when I was in primary school or whatever, probably these days, you wouldn't want to teach it that way anymore, certain things. Like if you forget everything we know, like if you unlearn, as you say, everything you know so far about school, and now you have the tools we have today, maybe they'll get a bit more powerful, probably they will, and you have to design a school system for, let's focus on primary school for now, actually. I don't know, what is it, 6 to 12 years old, doesn't matter. How would you actually design that? Because I'm pretty sure this is going to change drastically.
I agree. It's a difficult question. Never thought about this before, but the first thing that comes to mind is values. So from a very early age, try to teach values, but then at the same time, people should be able to choose their values themselves, and just telling them what kind of values are valuable is the wrong approach probably as well. But I think values is something that is not part of a curriculum at schools or in our education system.
It's also so difficult because I just had this conversation recently with my wife, and we were like kind of thinking, okay, on the one side, yes, you can put them into the legacy system if you want, right? And you will not have any control what they do, what they learn, what they are being taught. Like these days, they might really, I'm going to use this word, indoctrinated. They might really get indoctrinated with weird shit. Maybe, maybe not. You just don't know, I think. But that's the point. You don't know. You don't know what values they're going to give you. You don't know what, what's going to happen there, And if you kind of take it from there, that in an ideal case, if you really have the time, probably you actually want to be the school. As a parent, you want to be the school. You want to give the values. You want to do this. I think literally I could probably teach my kids within 2 years what they usually learn in 10 years. Just because let's cut out all the BS and let's really focus on exactly your level, because in my school times, I remember I was expelled from school almost a couple of times, almost. I always kind of knew where the limit was, but almost. And it was just because other kids, they were doing their homework in the class for an hour, and me and my bestie, we were finished after, 6 to 10 minutes because it was just trivial for us, And it's not to say someone's better, someone is worse, it doesn't matter. But then what you do as a kid, you just start to act out. You start to be loud, you start to talk, you start to do all the things you shouldn't do, because you cannot just sit there and do nothing as a kind of 7 or 8 year old. And this is really what I'm hoping to get out of AI, is this hyper-personalized approach, on the one side. Also, you can really teach them what they are interested in. So I hope we can kind of use the the AI systems to really give these new perspectives, give these more personalized perspectives on schools. And I don't know, I don't have the answer here, but probably you will have like one facilitator, not a teacher, but like facilitator who will kind of teach you the basics. Like, okay, kids behave, we're all in here together, don't do this, don't do that. Of course, I still think there should be some societal rules that are just objectively good, you know. But then for all the rest, I think the kids should just be able to explore. Because really, if I would think back now, if a teacher would have given me at, I don't know, 8 years old, unlimited access to YouTube plus AI and would have guided me, of course, I would not have been able to do it myself, but would have guided me the way I could probably guide a kid these days, that would have been incredible, like absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems in education is what you mentioned, because the system is built for, excuse me, because
factory
I find
workers.
I don't find a better word, for the 20% of the like the 20% of the dumbest people in our society, and everyone else, if you're on the 21%, you're
gonna wait.
Yeah.
And also it's really built from a system where it was just tight structure. They were literally raising and breeding factory workers. Their bell rings at 8, you go to work. The bell rings at 12, you stop working for 30 minutes. The bell rings at 12:30, you start working again, and so on. They were really raising these people to be that, right? And I just think we need to unlearn there completely, really, and start fresh.
Yeah, I think one thing that's very helpful from an education system standpoint is the curriculum, but you need a better curriculum. That's my way of thinking. And I think they miss a couple crucial things in life. Some of it is what we're just discussing today. It's the health.
Oh, yeah.
It's the personal development part or personal growth, where also money or finance and all those kind of things.
If I want to be devil's advocate now, could you argue that they don't want you to know this, actually? Because really, I mean, for a state, it's just much easier to control dumb people. It's much easier to control people who never have been exposed to kind of a different thinking that they want you to think. Don't you think this is actually by design, or do you think they just didn't know any better when they were doing these curriculums?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't know. And in the end, it doesn't really matter, because what matters is you need to figure out which kind of systems or which kind of games you would like to play, and what kind of games you cannot avoid. And one of it is, for example, health. And that they are still teaching you certain things that are completely wrong, obviously disproven by science about health, and they're still teaching you this wrong at school in our education system.
It lags behind.
This is something that I completely dishonor about the education system. But otherwise, everything else is probably speculation. I wouldn't go as far as I'm saying like they're doing it on purpose. Of course, there are some governments that try to put more control, but we talked about entropy and about negative net entropy, because if you want to control a system, you need to put energy into this. And you need to focus your energy and the energy of the people in your system on certain areas. And some of the areas in our systems are just a given in a capitalistic world. So it's obvious that you need to learn those kind of things in school. The question, though, is, do you want to just conform and follow those rules, or do you want to play your own game? You want to play by your own rules? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And I think that comes back down to critical thinking. So if you ask me like about the school, probably I would teach them about the 4 pillars we're just exploring right now. I would teach them a couple.
We're not getting very far. We're still at pillar number 1.
We're still at pillar number 1 about health. But it is the fundamental pillar. I mean, the moment, like in your 20s, you're probably not focusing too much on health. You don't need to, because your body will do fine. You can get drunk and wake up after 3 hours and you're still going to perform. But in your 30s and 40s, in your 50s, that's not going to work out anymore.
I think I was born 50 because I could never do this actually. Anyway.
You are anyways an absolute exception. And I have to go back to something you just mentioned before. And that's, how did you get almost expelled at school before?
Wow. So many stories. Well, I mean, it's really the little things actually. It's really just, well, I mean, I can speak from primary school. We were a very difficult class because actually we had 4 or 5 really smart kids, like who now turned out quite well, most of them, really. And yeah, I mean, it was just probably, I mean, teacher tried his best, a really lovely guy. He was like he was in his last year, 65 years old. We were in his last class. He thought, wow, it's going to be a beautiful ending. But he just failed to kind of get on the level, or to kind of get you and catch you on the level where you were, And yeah, I mean, I would love to tell now a fancy story of how we did really bad things, but it was just really the basics. We were too loud, we were too active, we were too this, we were too that, we were not conforming how he wanted us to be. Basically, he wanted us to be still and just normal and just this and just that. And well, you know me a little bit, that's just not me, right? And unlucky for the teacher, there were like 4 or 5 other guys who were exactly like me. So that was probably not his favorite combination. But yeah, I guess for me, I just always ask the question, why? Why do I need to do this? And I always try to be one step ahead, and people in authoritative positions don't like this. I'll give you an example. For example, the teacher thought it's going to be a great idea to give us kind of writing exercises in French as a punishment, So whenever we were too loud, he was like, Enrico, you have to write now 1 page of the vocabulary book in French. And I was a smart ass, of course. And basically what I did, I just went on one weekend and prepared 50 of those or whatever. And then for the whole year, whenever he said, Enrico, you were too loud now, you were too this, I did like this. And I put, yeah, there you go. It's already prepared, And of course, he didn't love that. He didn't love that. So yeah, in a way, I probably was outsmarting him a little bit. And yeah, then they tried to go harder and they tried to do this and try to do that. But it just doesn't work. At the end, you need to work with and not against the kids, You need to, if someone is finishing after 10 minutes, give them more, give them harder, give them really what the world will also give you. It's not going to be easy. It's gonna be hard. So in a way, we just need to get more personal approaches in school. And during my times when I was in school, I think the things I was taught were actually pretty objective and pretty normal, I would say. Like there was not a thing that I could say, oh wow, this teacher was kind of ideologically driven and tried to indoctrinate me with whatever. Today, I really see this actually. Unfortunately, like if you speak to parents, sometimes you'll hear anecdotal things where they tell you, "Oh wow, this is probably not the way it should be in a school," And I think we need to reduce that a bit. We need to try to put more personalization into it. We need to leverage AI also, probably in a way, in a framework that we just discussed, where yes, first you need the critical thinking, the kind of logical thinking, but then also you need this as a competitive advantage, really. Otherwise, I don't know, if all the Chinese kids, for example, are using AI since they're 3 and they have 20 years of more experience than our people here, they're just going to outsmart us. Literally, they're going to outsmart us, probably. So yeah, it's a thin line, but I think let's move on to the second pillar. I think health we've pretty much covered. We kind of drifted away into complete other things too, which was lovely actually. What is the second most important pillar for you?
I think the most important is health, definitely, but there is not like a second or third or fourth most important pillar, because in the end, it's up to you where you put.
What is it for you?
For me, it's health, because if I feel like I'm not healthy, for me it's like health, and then there's relationships, and I had discussions with people about why relationship comes afterwards, because even love and all those kind of things, it's like a basic need of a human being. I kind of disagree, because if you're not healthy, if you're not financially stable in our society where we're living, you just have to be completely realistic about this. You're a burden for your relationships. You're a burden for your family. You're a burden for your friends. You're a burden for your partner. If you're not healthy and if you're not financially stable, like there's just certain things in life that you need to figure out and take responsibility for. And if you're not, you're probably just end up not really being a help or a support.
Just not the best version of
society.
Yourself. I think you'll just not be the best version of yourself, and you cannot actually go where you need to go, you know? So yeah, in a way, actually, I agree with this ordering. If you don't have health, both mental and physical, I think you cannot be the person you need to be, you know, and then you cannot kind of give into the relationships what you would need. But what's your framework there? Because this is something I actually struggle tremendously, because I'm incredibly bad at actually reaching out and keeping the connection. You know, when I'm in the moment with the people, it's always fantastic and lovely. But sometimes I find myself in moments where like, oh wow, I forgot to text that person or to reach out to that person for months. Not because I'm ghosting anyone or doing anything. It's just because I literally forget. Do you have a system for that? I kind of have a system for that, but I'm curious if we have a similar system there. So I would like to kind of test the waters there. How do you do this? Do you have a tracking mechanism? Do you have anything, or you just wing it?
I used to wing it in the past, and I got a pretty good feeling how to do it. But I learned with time that there are certain just rules that apply to a relationship. So if we dive into relationships, I subcategorize this in 3 parts. Friendships, you were talking now about friendships, I assume. I talk about, I would structure it into family and romantic relationship. And with friendships, for example, and it doesn't mean if it can be a friendship, can be a business relationship, it can be both, you usually should spend in the beginning more time with someone. It's just much easier to build the relationship. So if you meet someone for the first time, try to spend as much time as possible within a short amount of time. It's the same Ebbinghaus forgetting curve applies to relationships as well. You're forgetting about them, they're forgetting about you. But if you spend enough time with them together, and I think Google published last year an article about selling. I think it is about selling and conversion, about parasocial relationships, and that you need to spend 7 hours with a person, and afterwards you're building some kind of trust. So there needs to go time into this. Apparently, according to Google, this relationship isn't just built by spending time like we do right now. It's also with parasocial relationships. So if someone is watching this podcast and we are going on for an hour or 2, this applies to building the relationship with one of the audience members as well. And so one rule for me is, if I meet someone that's really interesting, that I think like, oh wow, I really would like to have this person in my circle, I try to reach out immediately and meet this person as soon as possible again, and meet this person more often in the beginning.
You know, quick side quest. Actually, with my wife, I kind of did the extreme version of that, because coincidentally, before I met her, I was just giving away my apartment to travel alone, apparently alone, for like, I think it was 8 or 9 months. I had this whole plan. I'm going to go to Bali. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go everywhere. And literally, I think 1 week before the travel journey embarked, that's when we met. And then literally, we actually ended up kind of traveling these 9 months together. And after 9 months of traveling, I think there's no better test. If you didn't kill each other after 9 months of traveling, being in small, cramped, shitty hotel rooms every single day together, I think you might just be fine. And then we actually knew pretty fast what we want, how the life together should look like, think we got engaged after like half a year, which for Swiss standards is completely crazy, right? Objectively. But if you know, you know. And that was really the factor. We just spent so much time together that you just know, in regular relationships, they kind of start dating, then they see them, okay, 1 hour here, 1 hour there. Before you live together, you maybe spend, I don't know, a cumulative of 1 month together within 2 or 3 years, and that's just probably why most things also fail, because they just don't know each other really, So I couldn't agree more with this time component. You really get the hang of it. Maybe 8 or 9 months is even too much of time, but you can do it in a month or two. But I really resonate with that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to connecting with the person, because it would be very difficult if you meet someone for 15 minutes every week for 5 years. Probably just spending with this person 1 week at a time is still less time than spending the next 5 years meeting for 15 minutes. But in the end, you're going to know this person much better after this week.
Yeah, of course.
So there is some kind of intensity, some kind of energy you put into this, some kind of commitment you put into this, to spending so much time, or what we just talked about, life together.
But do you have like a tracking system when let's say you have a set of friends, right? 30, 40, 50, 100, whatever. Like, do you have a mechanism to know, I didn't spend so much time with this person, or is it purely intuition for you?
I seriously used a CRM system years ago.
Me too.
I
still use it.
I don't anymore, because I feel like it shouldn't be like that, because they're not customers, they're friends and their family. So no, I just try to meet regularly. For example, I try to immediately set up the next meeting instead of waiting. Just when I leave the conversation, I leave after traveling, I usually just already try to book the next thing with this person, so I meet them again. It's like the little things. And if I fail on this, at least put it into my notes, into my reminders to follow up. But I don't use a CRM system anymore. But
funny, because for me, this actually works pretty well, this approach. I have like a Kanban board of all the relevant people in my life. And they all have a due date, which doesn't mean they expire by that date, but it means that at this date, I should reach out again, Yeah. And there's different frequencies for different relationships, Some friends I meet every 3 months, and it's fine. Other I meet every 2 weeks. Other I meet whatever, Some once a year. It's okay, For some things, that's just fine. And I have this mechanism where it pops up in my to-do list. It's then like a task in my overall ecosystem. And then I reach out. And then, of course, I don't just text, but then I really try to, okay, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's do whatever, right? And this, to be completely honest, on the one hand, it is an additional stress factor. I'm still in the process of figuring out, do I actually like this approach or not? It's what I'm currently doing, but I'm not sure if I like it. But at the same time, it's also incredibly useful, because then when you start a new thing, a new project, a new business, I have one truth that I can consult, and I know, let me go through my list. I know this person, he could help. He knows that, he knows this. So on the one side, it's an additional stressor. On the other side, it really helps you kind of visualize your relationships. Once again, I haven't concluded yet if I love it or hate it, but that's what I'm doing right now. So you used to do a similar thing, huh?
I did. The first question that comes to mind for me is like, does it feel like work?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was the same for me. And then that's why I stopped.
Yeah.
Because in general, one approach to my life is I don't want any day of my life to feel like it is work.
Yeah.
And if I implement even my relationship into my relationship goals or approaches a work part that feels like work, I'm definitely doing something wrong. But if you're completely fine with this, go with it.
No, that's the one critique point I have for my own system. It does feel like work, and it's kind of the same thing. Sometimes you're really in the headspace to solve a task that should take 3 days and 2 hours. For whatever reason, it works. And sometimes you're not. And when you're not, then it's actually really hard to push this component also, And yeah, that's why I've been doing this for a couple of years now, actually. It's the least painful system I know. All the other systems for me are kind of worse because I just forget about people as horrible as it sounds. It's horrible, I know. But it's like, okay, you have this, and then you should do this and you should do that. And you will forget about one person at least, 100%. Then you can ask the question, should this person be there in the first place? Yes or no? I don't know. But pros and cons.
I think I never struggled with this particular problem because I used, or at the moment I'm using Obsidian, for example. It's a tool where you can create notes. It's on a markdown technology, and then you write down all the information. And there I also put down the names, so I can look up the names. So if someone said something interesting, or he told me or she told me that she's working on those kind of things, I can type in your name either, or I can type in AI, or I can type in technology, and then I see all the people, and it's a graph technology. You can see everything is connected, interconnected. So you see in a visual way what kind of topics you already talked about, and
so you track it on that level. So when you have a relationship with someone, you track it on that level. What did he say? This is an interesting thought. This is an interesting quote. Because this, I think, is actually very fascinating. I might try this.
For me, it's less about tracking. For me, it's more about, I know because of the, again, forgetting curve, I will forget the information. If you tell me something super interesting, I was just recently talking about certain tools someone is using for implementing a new software. And I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. So I wrote everything down. But it's important that you write it down in your own words, not with ChatGPT and just dictating stuff. Really write it down, because it sticks as well. And afterwards you can search for those topics. And you also start understanding, because you can link those notes to each other. And at this time, I have more than 100,000 notes in.
Wow.
Okay, that are
interesting question now. What can you mention here that is in your Obsidian about me, without getting me cancelled, of course? What's in there? How does that look? So there's my name, Enrico, and then below that there's interesting conversations we had. Or could you give me an example about me? What interesting things you took away from me that is now in your Obsidian? Do you have any examples that pop up right away?
I have a couple of examples. We can go through this. I didn't type in your name, but your name sometimes pops up with when I'm typing in technology. For example, when Dubai was a topic, then Bali was a topic. Those kind of things. And
so it's more like you do notes. These notes happen to include some names because we were speaking about this or whatever. And then you can kind of, with this Obsidian tool, get that information around my name. And that kind of gives you a full picture of a person. So it's not like you track it in a CRM, but it's more like a free form.
It's a free form, and I can recall it. And I have a template where it automatically adds the date. And this way, you usually can recall it, because when I see it was 11th of November, or it was in February in Dubai, or it was in Bali or somewhere else, I usually recall what we were talking about, just because I took some notes. And then you're connected, for example, interestingly to risk management in my approach, because I think you have some interesting approaches to risk taking. And
share that. What does it entail?
We will get to that afterwards in the personal growth part.
Okay.
We can dive in
mental
there.
note, huh? Yeah, mental note into that.
Yeah. So that's one way how I try to track because it doesn't matter if you have knowledge. If you don't apply your knowledge, you don't have really an advantage, especially in information theory as well. It doesn't really matter how much information you have, especially nowadays. Like, it's IQ, it's just one form of intelligence. And it's completely useless if you don't apply it.
I agree.
So you need, and I think the part most people struggle with is actually intelligently applying those systems in a creative way that it creates value. And then after creating value, you still need to be able to capture value if you want to monetize it. Thinking about a business, if we're talking about this. And those are a little bit like the thoughts that go through my head, how I built the structure in a business, for example. And when we when you go back to relationships though, I usually, when I have an interesting conversation, I take a note, and that's already for me a trigger to know, and this is someone I would like to have in my circle. Because if we have a 2-hour or a lunch or a dinner, and I don't take one note afterwards, that's usually a bad sign. But that doesn't.
I made it.
No pressure. No, that's for me, it's just you need to be on the same wavelength, and at the same time, you need to have some challenging conversations. You shouldn't look for people that agree with your knowledge, but actually that have an interesting way of thinking about the same topics and maybe a different way. That's something I really, really like. And Obsidian is one tool it's for my knowledge management. I also use it for personal growth, but that also applies to relationships. And that's especially friendships. And friendships is one part, then the other part is family, and the third part is romantic relationship. So those 3 parts, and then I usually rate it. So even as the same I do for health, I do for relationships, I do for personal growth, and I do for purpose. I rate those areas from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, and 10 being absolutely excellent, nothing to improve here. So that's where I go through this exercise. And afterwards, I look at those different areas. And when I see like something is really like standing out in a bad way, so it's being a 1, a 2, or a 3, I can decide to actually tackle this area with a system, with tactics, with action items, or I just ignore it. But I know if I ignore it for too long, it might hit back at a later time in life. Because if I completely ignore my health, if I completely ignore romantic relationship or the relationship with my family, there might be a point in life where I'm going to regret that I did something.
And so this you do like once a week, basically. This exercise where you rank? No.
I do this probably every year. But I don't live by, I live by a 12-week year.
Yeah.
I feel like when you read, okay, there is a
12 weeks, 12 months kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So every week is a month.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm doing this is because science proved several times that if you follow a 1-year plan, like 95, 97% fail already after 6 months. And they don't follow through. It's very difficult to follow through. It's more about breaking it down into pieces that you can actually like apply to your life. So it's much easier if you think about the next 3 months, which is the 12-week year. There's a book about this, and then apply.
Because this is actually great, because once a year, I sit down and set all my goals. And after exactly 3 months, they're not accurate anymore.
Yeah.
And then I have like an automated task that pops up every month called goals check up for me. And I check the goals and I tweak them. So this is actually interesting to really look at this 12 weeks versus 12 months. And what kind of results do you get with this? Like, did you see something where first it's going to take me 5 months and then it literally took you 5 weeks instead?
Yeah, because it forces you. It's for me, it's now we're going into mental models about this, because it's a forcing function. And a lot of people know mental model, for example, the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, for example. And not a lot of people know about the forcing function. Forcing function is something you can apply to your life that just makes you move towards that result that you would like to achieve. And I purposefully use results and not goals, because results for me, they're something that I can visualize. So Can
you explain a difference? In my head, this doesn't click immediately. So you use results versus goals. Like, can you give us an example?
Yeah, sure. For example, in your business, you set a goal, and your goal is you want to achieve 1 million in revenue this year in business X.
That's a goal, huh?
That's a goal.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But what is the actual result behind achieving 1 million? The result, what do you do with 1 million? The result should be, I am able to go on a 3-week vacation without my business falling apart. I will be able to grow it to this amount of customers. Like, where is the value creation, the purpose behind this? And for your personal goal, the same. I think people that write down financial goals and they write down, I want to have a certain number, it doesn't really make sense. Rather think in a lifestyle or in a life that you would like to live, and then figure out what amount of money you need. This is then an action item, and it's not just a goal that you write up there. I want to achieve 10 million, 100 million, and then it's just a number up there that you're probably never going to achieve, because you don't have something that forces you towards that goal. And then I break it down to action items. So
the result, and you break that down to actions.
Yeah, I call it action items. You can call it habits, whatever. It can be a habit. It doesn't need to be a habit. But if you want to lose, let's go with physical health, because I think a lot of people try to improve on those kind of topics. If you want to lose 7 kilograms of body fat, and your goal is to lose 7 kilos of body fat, that's very difficult to visualize for me. So the result should rather be something that you can see in front of you. And if you have the 7 kilograms of body fat, then how do you achieve it? Okay, I have to eat maximum, we go by the thermogenic effect. So we assume you're allowed to consume 2,000 or 2,200 kilocalories per day. Excuse me. Per week would be a little bit extreme. Per day. And you need to.
That's a good premise for your mom joke.
That's how David Goggins. That's how David Goggins did it, my friends. Now, you consume this amount of kilocalories with 160 grams of protein and this amount of carbohydrates and maximum of 60-70 grams of fat. And I, at the same time, walk at least 10,000 steps, and I work out 3 times a week. I do some kind of resistance training. And then you put that on your calendar, or however you force yourself to do it. And then you can use a forcing function to actually apply it as well. Because most people struggle to follow through with this. And one forcing function you can use is actually money, spending money on something. So if you're someone that tried and failed with this approach, I advise you to get a personal coach that costs money. And something that costs enough money that you follow through. Whatever amount that is for you. But that's why it works then, because if someone, first of all, you have an accountability partner that is checking in on you, you're paying for this person, and you pay upfront this person, even if he has different payment terms, you pay this person upfront for the next 12 months. So even if it costs you 12,000 or whatever you pay this person, you pay it upfront. Because then you start following through with this. That's a forcing function.
So you have a coach, right? And I think last time we spoke, you told me you meet him once a week, right? I think. And can you walk us through a session? Like, how does that look? Because, for example, I have a similar practice once a month, kind of a recap mechanism and a bit of a planning ahead mechanism. But I bet if you do it every single week, it looks very, very different. When do you do it? Is it in the morning? Is it in the evenings? How do you do it? Is there a structure? Do you bring the structure? Does he bring the structure? What's like the deal there?
It was moving, or it was the concept moved over the past years, but nowadays it's mainly my structure we're following, and he's just challenging me once I take a change on direction. Because direction is the purpose part we're coming to later on. And your purpose is your North Star, is your direction where you're going to. And you should be allowed to change direction slightly, but you shouldn't be allowed to change your direction completely. And that's where a coach is very helpful, in my opinion, because this person can tell you like, yeah, but last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, you said you're going to do this. You're following through. So what are you going to do next week? So he just is mainly accountability partner and challenging me on the topics. When I'm, for example, I told him in January, or there was one example, I said like, I'm having too many meetings at the moment. I'm meeting too many people. And he said like, what do you mean? I said like, I met 8 people today. Physically meeting 8 different people in different locations today. That's exhausting. That's just very exhausting. And then he challenged me on a smarter approach. Instead of like just going for a lower number, he asked me like, what were the kind of conversations? What was my goal during this conversation? Why did I go on a lunch or on a dinner with this person? Was it worth it? Did I actually structure the conversation, or did the other person structure the conversation? And this way you just get to know yourself better, your environment better, and it's just talking about the topics. You probably learn something every single week about yourself.
Mm-hmm. And do you see a big difference of doing it weekly versus monthly?
I have to be completely honest, I'm not doing it every single week. We're like, if I don't have time on like yesterday, usually we're doing it on a Thursday, and I didn't have time yesterday, so I canceled it.
Is it like a morning thing, or?
No, for me it's evening. For him it's
okay,
yeah,
that time zone.
Time zone, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
If you could schedule it in the morning, you would, or doesn't matter for you? Doesn't really matter.
No, I think you get used to it.
Yeah.
You just the thing is, everything in life needs to become a habit. Yeah. If it's helping you to become better. And something I realized for myself is just a coach is so helpful in so many different ways. I can't tell you how many hours I wasted working out in a completely wrong way or eating the wrong food because no one told me, and I thought like I need to read on the internet this stuff. It's just an accelerator. You can use money to get a coach that is just giving you this kind of information in a way that you can apply it immediately.
And what are your top habits that you take away from that? Top 3, if you have to rank?
Top 4, push your body, stretch your mind, refuel daily, and recover well. Because you're not going to be on top of it.
This guy has an answer for everything, telling you. No, good. So we have health. We have relationships.
Yeah.
What is your third?
Personal growth.
Personal growth.
Yeah.
This is now where you're going to, because I took this mental note, even physically. Risk management. What is it about me and risk management that was so satisfying and so interesting you had to write it down?
Okay.
I'm really curious now, you have to say.
So in my personal growth area, I look at 3 different things usually, but that's the area where it can change. So usually it's skill development as well. It can be, or it was in the past, career, and it was finance. But for me, it changed the career part to different things. Every couple of months, I'm actually exchanging that point in the personal growth part, because usually personal growth is one of the areas I'm trying to improve every single month. Mm-hmm. And when I'm looking at risk management, what I learned from you is my risk management was coming from a completely different area. And I think that's something everyone should think about, where your knowledge is coming from. Because even when we talked about entropy, I learned it from information theory. A lot of people learn it from thermodynamics. It's different ways where you can learn about certain topics. Others hear about this probably for the first time on this conversation. And one thing with risk management is it just influences you massively where it's coming from. That's what I realized. Mine was coming from a relationship. So I didn't feel secure after a certain relationship I had in the past. And that influenced my risk-taking in general to apply completely different in business, in investing, and so on. And your approach to risk management was you built something to have stability. You have like a stable component. So you are actually, if I want to put it into smart terms, it's you using an exploit-explore framework for your life.
What does that mean? You can explain, because even I don't get that actually.
Okay.
And I think the audience probably also doesn't.
Okay. The explore exploit is a concept that you can apply to your business as well. And you're usually in the beginning of when you have a startup, or even when when you apply to your personal life in your 20s, you're in an explore mindset. You're exploring a lot of different things. And you should, especially in your early years, you should explore more, because there's more chaos. You don't know the rules exactly. You try to figure things out, even with your startup, even with your business. What's working, what's not working. But then slowly you're moving over to the exploit mode, where you're trying to get better, professionalize things, getting leaner, getting more efficient, those kind of things. And what I learned is like you applied this to the first business you built is a business that is bringing you the stability to play other games as well, like the startup game. So you have the stability, like you completely de-risk yourself without actually using asymmetric risk reward. And so what's asymmetric risk reward? So I always used asymmetric risk reward. I always tried to find opportunities in my life where the risk is very small. You can talk about like emotional, but let's do it in money terms, in business opportunities. Let's say, for example, I find an opportunity that costs 10,000 Swiss francs or dollars. But the upside of this investment is 100K. So then you can calculate your risk-reward ratio. And your risk-reward ratios, it should be, or my risk-reward ratio always was better than a 1 to 3. So my risk shouldn't, like if I'm correct every third time, in other terms, then I'm still doing well. Then I'm still doing break even at least. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. And if the risk-reward is even better, great. But you're actually playing a different game. You took a lot of risk in the beginning without actually knowing how much reward you have. You took a long-term approach to this because you knew it's going to take a couple of years to build this. And once you've built it, though, you're able to play a high risk and high reward game. And with the money you're having from your first business. As a completely different approach to risk management. I'm not saying like yours is better or mine is, but it's just completely different perspective And that's something I'm grateful for, that when we were talking about business that you were giving me, for example.
I think it's always good to have this backup option. Because especially when you're kind of in this founder circles and startups and all of that, you still have to understand most things will actually fail. And probably not with a risk-reward ratio of 3, but with something drastically less in your odds, drastically. And yeah, that was just my approach. You need something stable that works, that you're not going to go to bed hungry. Because I mean, basic needs, because at the same time, okay, some people do it with a regular job, right? But then you still have these boundaries and you cannot actually go and explore, as you said, right? So yeah, I could probably give that advice to people, to really first try to do something a bit more boring and then go a bit more crazy. That's it seems to work not too bad, I think. And
you're doing well, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Interesting. Okay, so this is your takeaway from risk management from me. Yeah, actually, it's interesting because I never thought about this as of now, until now. Like, it wasn't like I planned anything. I of course, yes, I plan like on a 1-year horizon and so on. I have this goal setting and everything, but it's not like I designed the whole system like this. That was pure luck, I think, probably, because yes, now. It would sound amazing if I say, yes, I planned it and this is exactly how it worked and everything went to plan and I'm a genius. I'm definitely not. There's so many more, much smarter people, much smarter people. But I think now looking at it that way, the way you just explained it actually makes total sense. So it's interesting because it really wasn't planned at all. I always try to play the game of diversifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because it's better if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things going on for you that have high risk, high reward. Well, you're literally going to have better chances than it's just one thing, right? If you build one thing, startup, whatever, you need to bank on this to really, really work. I always kind of try to leverage technology to build multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I think, also kind of diversification. Do you have a similar approach in your kind of selection of business opportunities you pursue, or do you go all in on one?
No, diversification,
right?
As well. Yeah, that's again a point that speaks absolutely against focus, right? Because everyone's telling you like focus. I rather would say it's about obsession. You need to be absolutely obsessed, because when you started building your AI medtech startup, you needed to be absolutely obsessed with this topic.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember
go all
I woke
in.
up in the morning and all I can think of was this. Really, it's incredible. I think unless you have this, you cannot push through, because it's going to get so hard. Every rational person would give up, 100%. So you need to be actually super crazy and super obsessed about the thing to have the courage and the energy and the mindset and everything to really keep going. And that's, for me, actually the sanity check. When I start anything, if I feel like, wow, this is life-changing, this is amazing, this is incredible, when I can't shut up about it, when my wife tells me, hey, maybe don't talk about this shit so much, it's actually getting annoying, then I know, okay, I'm onto something, For example, right now, it's actually these AI coding IDEs, I mean, kind of coming from having a tech background myself, right? I always was a mediocre coder at best. I mean, I studied computer science and everything, but actually studying computer science doesn't make you a great coder. There's so many, like that's actually what I realized there. There's so many really smart people who really know how to code. I was a rookie at best. But now with these AI coding IDEs, I can code something that before was taking my team 3 to 4 months, 3 or 4 people. I can do it in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Same.
And probably in a better quality even. And this, at this stage, it's not kind of noob proof, so you cannot just not have any technical skills at all and go build cool things. But if you have this slight technical know-how and you use Cursor, this AI IDEs like a VS Code fork, and you actually build web apps with this or also mobile apps with it, the things you can build are infinite because instead of being the developer, you're like a product manager, product owner of the software, telling the AI what to do.
Yeah.
And this is just absolutely incredible. I actually this is my current obsession. I just figured this out a couple of weeks back. And now actually I built a pretty cool thing. Basically, before I was kind of using ClickUp, for task management and everything. And I had this very cool setup where I see all of the tasks that are due today. I also have a different view for all the tasks that are due tomorrow. I had the whole system kind of figured out exactly for my workflow. And now within a week or so, I was able to rebuild that whole thing much better, for my specific use case, and really also put the AI component into it. And now basically I can press a shortcut on my keyboard and I literally can speak to the system. I can say, hey, create a new task that does this and that and so on, blah, blah. And the system understands me. Everything connected with AI in the background. There's a full backend to it. And that was just me. And not because I'm a super great genius. It's because these tools are getting so incredible. And right now, really, I cannot stop thinking about this. Imagine if all of a sudden you get a tool where you can build something that before it took you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, whatever, and now you can do it in weeks alone, just by thinking it, imagining it. This, for me, opens up so many new opportunities that I'm really now exploring actively. It's a fire, and I think unless you can speak about it the way I just spoke about it, whatever it might be, you shouldn't do it. You need to really have this, I wake up in the morning and I want to do that.
Yeah, it's really breaking barriers. It's just so interesting to see how you use leverage. Because if we want to talk about leverage as well, that's something you're absolutely great at using. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it.
I'm going to invite you more on the podcast. It's great. These compliments, I love it.
There are like 4 common forms of leverage that, in my opinion, everyone should understand. One form of leverage is money. Another form of leverage is technology, what you're using as well. Another form of leverage is people. And the 4th form of leverage is media. So your
technology is by far the biggest one, I think.
At the moment, yeah.
Right?
At the moment. But you're actually using and applying all 4 forms of leverage to your systems. That's what I think is incredible, because not a lot of people are using money to buy assets that bring you interest or that make your life easier, your processes better, your experience better. You use your money you use the leverage for technology as well, because technology is just such a massive leverage at the moment. As you mentioned, I agree as well that probably the developer and the product manager, they're merging into one role. Because the product manager can become the developer and the developer should become the product manager.
And designer also,
and designer.
The things look beautiful.
Yeah.
They look beautiful.
Yeah. I've just today I discovered some app where you can type in, where you can preload the software, or you can type in an URL and it's recreating the UX.
You need to share this with me afterwards, please, actually.
It's incredible.
Geek out on this
It's
later.
incredible. Yeah. So you use those 4 forms of leverage already. You now started using media leverage as well. And it's just some incredible way of applying it to your systems, because it starts working for you instead that you're working for your systems. And maybe going to the part of skill development, that's something I think you should always try to grow, because if you're not growing, you're dying. That's always something I say, you grow or you die.
Because you get entropy. It's the same.
It's the same. It's exactly the same. I mean, a plant that isn't growing is slowly dying, right? It's declining. So you should be growing. You should learn something. You should grow in a certain area, whatever it is. It doesn't always need to apply to your goals or your results that you want to achieve. Sometimes it can be just for pleasure as well. And then the other one is finance, for example. And maybe we can dive into finance, money, whatever you want to call it, because that's something people should figure out, because money loves speed, but wealth loves time. So what do I mean with this? The more money, the faster you can deploy your money into certain assets where money is working for you, where it's being used and giving you back interest again, the faster your money is growing, right? But at the same time, if you put something into an asset, if you buy a low-cost ETF, for example, you just need time. Wealth needs time. You need to just let it grow there for decades, the best. And I'm curious, like, did you learn in school or in your childhood about money, about finance, about wealth?
Probably from my parents, actually, because they had the philosophy that Enrico can do whatever the hell he wants, which can be terrible or great. For me, it was really great because I was able to do anything I want. So I didn't have to act out. You know, I was just really following the rules. I mean, okay, maybe I was a bit too active at times, yes, but really overall, I would say I was a pretty behaving child, actually, when it comes kind of to the other terrible things some kids do, you know. And it was the same with money. It was like, here's your, I mean, back then it was cash. Here's your cash for this month. Here's your cash for this thing. And then, of course, later went kind of digital with a card. And yeah, just always, they took me on that journey. They just showed me what it means, how hard you have to work for it, to actually have it, and all of those things. But then also really a huge thing is books and YouTube. Really, like so many things. Like I think my whole investment thesis of life, how I deploy my own capital, it's all from YouTube. It's all from books. It's all from mostly audiobooks. I'm kind of, I take this best kind of with audio, and this, yeah, it's all self-thought, or yeah, I guess it's this good combination of self-thought, but also I was lucky enough to really have parents who at an early age were showing me this concept, were letting me explore this concept, which then made me curious for more, you know, and then I kind of went out to check it out myself. Yeah, that's how I learned it, but nothing from school.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's funny, you know, I studied computer science. I think at the top 3 university in the world, ETH Zurich, right? For computer science, at least. And nothing that I'm using these days in my actual work, in whether it's AI, whether it's normal software development, whether it's just running the business, it's all from learning stuff online, YouTube, nothing from there. Now, I don't want to make it too bad, because what I learned actually at university and at school in general, it's the brain gym, you know? It's actually learning how to think in very complex topics. So even though I didn't learn any topics, maybe not nothing, but not so many topics at university, for example, I learned how to think about the really challenging things. And now every concept you throw at me, I will kind of put it in that mental framework, and I will be able to, well, hopefully, not always, of course, but like if it's a reasonable topic, I will hopefully be able to kind of deconstruct that and really go through it in my organized way, you know? So in a way, I think people should probably do both. I mean, there's always kind of these extremes, right? Where people say, hey, you should only learn yourself. You don't need any of the schools. And then there's the people who have 16 PhDs, right? And have never worked a day in their life. There's both, right? Try to be kind of reasonably in the middle, I guess, and try to take the best of both worlds and try to not go into extremes, you know? And at least I like to go into extremes in other topics, but I think in that topic, it was good to kind of take this very balanced approach of doing a bit of everything.
Yeah, and financial independence, retire early, is that something that rings a bell for you? This FIRE principle?
Yes, absolutely. But for me, I look at it so completely differently. Like for me, it would be torture if I have to retire early, actually. Torture. No, I want to not have to think about money, yes, but then I want to build things, you know. We're all builders. I think entrepreneurs are builders, you know. And the more money you have, the more you can actually start to build. The less meetings you have to take, the less bullshit you have to do, the more you can actually build. And for me, this is the purest form, actually going out and really build something, ideally with super smart people, and really put that out and make it useful for people, you know. And just the more money, like the earlier you can kind of retire technically, the more you can build. And that's kind of this positive feedback loop of really doing cool things, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I would never want to retire. That's the goal. I think it would be horrible. That means you already living a life you are regretting to live because you're looking for something in the future. But at the same time, I'm very grateful for this FIRE community, because they have some quite interesting information there. And maybe we can talk quickly about this, because this is something that shaped my investment philosophy a little bit. And it comes down to this Trinity study. And this Trinity study was done, I think, in the early 2000s. Maybe I'm mistaken here. But it's about what a safe withdrawal rate is. So first we need to understand a couple of terms when it's about finance. So you need to figure out how much money do you need to live every year. That's one number you need to know. And that after tax, or sorry, before tax, because tax doesn't apply the same way anymore. So how much do you actually have in expenses for traveling, for housing, for food, for restaurants, experiences, all those kind of things. Like, what's a number that you need to live well, really, really well? And then you can multiply this number by 25. The Trinity study is saying like you can withdraw safely 4% per year. So that's times 25. And that's the amount you need to reach to be financially independent. You don't need to retire early for this. But the thing is, let's just take some numbers here. Let's say it's $100,000, just to make it easy. So you need $100,000 to live per year. That means you need to have 2.5 million in assets, in stocks, for example. And there are super amazing calculators online that you can use, actually. And then you can see how much, what's the error rate behind an investment. If I invest 2.5 million into stocks, into a low-cost ETF, for example, what's the error rate over the next 30, 40, 50 years, or the failure rate, they call it, of your portfolio, meaning you would deplete completely your funds. But then they calculate all probabilities as well. And in certain scenarios, if you had invested that kind of money, you would end up with like 50 million on your bank account until you die. So I usually calculated this when I was a little bit younger, to my 9th, because I assume I'm at least getting 90 years old.
Much older these days with AI and biology.
I think as well.
You're going to be 150 easily.
90 years old, and you need to be able to sustain a certain lifestyle. But that's called fat fire. So meaning like you completely accumulate enough assets so you don't have to work at all anymore. But if you're still like feeling like, oh, now I'm actually in a position where I can achieve more freedom, and that's what it is about, because money isn't worth anything. It's just stored energy, because someone, you or your leverage, was working for you, and it's stored in dollars or in Swiss francs or in Bitcoins or whatever you have. It's stored in there, this energy, and you can deploy this money, this asset, in exchange for something else. It's nothing else. You just need to be smart about how to accumulate this. And if you achieve this 2.5 million, let's say, so you could comfortably live off this 100K, you can even calculate like this inflation rates and all these kind of things in those calculators. But it's just telling you like you should be saving as well. You should be saving money. And one one thing I think is quite interesting is you need to train your muscle for not completely overspending, for saving a certain amount on a regular basis and investing that money, because investing money is a muscle as well. And I think playing the game of private equity and investing your money into private companies isn't for most of the people. Most people I would advise, just buy a low-cost ETF.
MSCI All World or whatever.
Yeah.
Something like
just
that. Keep it simple.
buy this on a monthly base and with at least a certain percentage. And interestingly, like the savings rate of a lot of people are so low, it's sometimes like 5 or 10%, which you just realize.
Very oftentimes it's 0 for most people.
Or for some it's 0, because they play the status game. Yeah.
I think in the US actually, even, what was it? Don't quote me on the number, but it was like 80% of the people don't have the funds to pay like, I don't know, $300 emergency medical bill, whatever, something like this, like some ridiculous amount, and that's kind of crazy, actually.
I think the UK is even lower than the US.
Yeah,
I've seen. They have like a super low savings amount. But you can calculate it if you're able to, for example, put 50% of whatever money is inflowing, you can call it incomes or inflow, you're deploying this to your assets. I think, if I'm not completely mistaken, you should be able to reach that financial independence within 16 or 17 years. That's something you could achieve. So if you start quite early with this, it's even working in your favors thanks to compound interest, right? So it really depends on the amount of money. But that just brings me to the topic of like these subsystems within money, because money for me is a leverage, and finance, like money or looking rich, is not the same as being wealthy. And the thing is, you can tell if someone is rich because he can afford certain items, he can buy nice things, but you can't tell if someone is wealthy.
True.
That's super difficult to tell.
Some of the wealthiest people I know, they really look like sometimes close to homeless people. You know how they clothe and even how they behave in some ways. But they are really the smartest one in the room by far. But they are so smart that they don't even need to show it. That's the power.
That's a power move, yeah. That's another one quickly to pick up is, I think it is good to be the smartest person in the room. I go against the general opinion here with you should never be the smartest person in the room. Because if you negotiate a deal, a term sheet with other investors, and you're the dumbest person in the room, you're just gonna end up really bad.
Gonna get ripped off, of course. Yeah.
So try to be the smartest person in the room at least.
But don't show it at the same time. This is super, like other people can never know that you actually are. But you need to play this 3D chess or 4D chess or whatever, where you already know their move and you have 17 counter moves. And that's actually how I approach a lot of these discussions. In many negotiations, in many things, I know exactly what they will do. There's maybe, let's say, 5 different ways it can go. And it's this decision tree, If they do this, then this and this. If they do that, then this and that, and so on. And I literally sometimes just play this through in my head. And you know more or less where you will end up. And this gives you a whole new perspective to the whole conversation, Like you will go into the conversation very differently if you basically already know how it's going to end. Doesn't work always, of course. Sometimes there's unknowns, how it's called, I think, where you just don't know that this even was possible. Yes, but otherwise, this is really a good approach where you try to outsmart the people just by having thought about the conversation already beforehand and just being ready, being prepared,
You're applying a very powerful mental model here. To give it a name, it's called second and third order thinking, what you're doing. So you're not just thinking about the immediate consequence of your action. So most people, they just think about the next thing that's going to happen. And the second and third order thinking actually is what really matters. So let's go to a topic of you need to finish some work deadline. And now you're working until 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning because you promised the client he's getting the thing done by the next day. The first order consequence is you're reaching the goal of actually delivering the work. But at the same time, you're sacrificing on your recovery, on your sleep, and on your ability to perform the next day for being able to deliver that day. Which on third order is bringing you to the point where you start realizing, hey, this actually works. I can just work all through the night and deliver at 4 a.m. in the morning. So you start implementing a habit called procrastination because you can just work through the night. Mm-hmm. So that's first, second, third order thinking. It has a profound effect on your life, on your habits. So if you're conscious about the second order, already about the second order, that's absolutely amazing. If you're thinking even further, I mean, I would love to be as smart as those grandmasters that are like, what are they thinking? Like 12 or 15 steps ahead?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's insane.
I tried this actually playing chess. I tried it, but I just cannot. My brain shuts off at the third step, I think. To be quite honestly, probably even a bit earlier, because depending where the chessboard, the chess pieces are. But what is different about those people actually? How the hell can I do this? You know?
I have no idea. I've just seen a news article about some guy playing blindfolded against 10 other people, like professional chess players, blindfolded.
Hearing the audio of where he
stands. They just told him, like he said, like, oh, it's E5 or whatever, and he remembered all 10 chessboards. How is this even humanly possible?
You know what I think here? Probably our brain is very similar to an LLM, the way it works. You know, this grandmaster, he hears, I don't know, L5, and he heard other things before. He had other tokens as input before, and then he knows how to complete that next token. And probably what we're building right now in AI is very, very similar to what we actually have in our brain. Of course, we don't know this because we don't. Yeah, it's a very hard research, right? Just to see how does that actually work. But probably that's kind of making sense. So in a way, humans are just reacting to input, and smarter humans are doing that on a higher quality level than less smart people. And that's all there is, probably, right?
Yeah, I think it comes down to pattern recognition afterwards. Right. You're just getting smarter and you start understanding, oh, this pattern is harmful or this pattern is actually the right one.
What if we are already the AI of some other experiment that already happened?
I think we're already playing the game.
You think so, right?
I have no idea, but it would be fun as well if it would be true. I just think we all shouldn't be as serious about life and take a more playful approach to it and look at most things in life as a game, because it is.
And just have fun.
Yeah.
Just have fun. Because imagine, like, I think there's like this research where it says, okay, chimpanzees are like a couple of percentage points less intelligent than we are, you know? But they are basically, I mean, compared to humans, complete morons, right? So imagine now if someone else was programming us who's 1 or 2 percentage points smarter than us, whatever that might be, could very well be actually, you know, could very, very well be. I don't know. It's hard. But yeah, I think we'll not answer this specific question today, but we might answer some more questions. So now we have health, relationships, personal growth. The last one, I even forgot about it. What is it? Purpose.
Yeah.
Isn't it the most powerful? Why does it come? Is it coming last?
It's not last. For me, it is a circle. Usually, I look at it differently. It's a circle to look at, and it's something that I think changes the least in your life, because it's more about figuring out what your values and your North Star is, what you would like to have, what kind of impact you would like to have. For me, it's a part of it is also social contribution, or societal contribution, like what kind of things are you helping with, because it just feels good. Is it social work, or maybe as well on helping other people grow and getting better. For me, there is actually the part of business as well inside. Like there's a part, like purpose is, for me, is business. Because if I'm able to create value for a business or help them capture more value, that's purpose for me as well, because I'm contributing value to them and help them grow.
This is actually a concept that very many people misunderstand. You know, there's so many people out there who say, hey, people with, I don't know, 1 million or 1 billion or 10 billion or whatever billions, they shouldn't exist. There's no way 1 hour can pay you this much. You know, if you calculate the hour's value of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whatever, Zuckerberg, there's no way, they say there's no way one person can actually work so much. But it's not actually what you work on. It's actually the effect you have on other people's life that pays you, you know? And this, I think, is this mental model that needs to switch. It's not about how hard you work at all. It's about how much value can you provide for your target audience, whatever that might be. And in that sense, billionaires, millionaires, whatever, absolutely should exist, because some people just create so much value, and that's just not measured in time even. And I think this is actually something, it goes kind of back into leverage once again, right? Some people do 1 and they get 1. Other people do 3 and they get 1. Other people do 1 and they get 1 billion, you know? And it's just leverage, really doing the right thing, doing the purposeful thing, doing the thing that is valuable to others. And you know, your client at the end of the day, he doesn't care if you worked until 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., or not at all. If someone else did the work, he cares, hey, how was the work delivered? Is the work good? And this is something that people need to completely detach themselves from. Time and money is, there's no correlation. There shouldn't be a correlation there if you really want to kind of go further than the average citizen. It's really, you put in energy and you need to figure out what's the maximum leverage I can have kind of with that time input in someone else's life. And in a way, that's also why we're kind of doing this. Because for me, I learned so much from all of those people being out there and really teaching and helping and just uploading stuff online and whatever, that I think it's so important to really give that. And for me, that was kind of the highest leverage position I could find, you know, to really to help people, to show them, hey, this is a way, you know. It's not like you're saying, hey, you need to do it exactly like this. No, there's a buffet of options. And, you know, sometimes from one podcast, from one show, you really take away just one thing. From this conversation, people might just take away one thing. It's similar at the very beginning, you know, where you met this guy in Australia in the beautiful skyscraper, right? You took away 1 or 2 things and they changed your life. And I think it's always about thinking, how can I multiply my kind of leverage to the absolute maximum, and completely decoupling it from time. Yeah. And that's what most people actually fail to do.
Yeah, and that's what brings freedom in the end.
Oh yeah.
That's and optionality as well. I would say that's a big one, because if someone is telling me they don't have time to work out, it just, even guys that are very successful from a financial perspective, then they just they designed a completely false setup, because they were not able to build something where health is part of their system, of their setup.
It's the mono focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what most people can do. I think it's reasonably achievable to have success in one of these areas in your lifetime, of course. Not everyone is lucky enough to do this. There's also a really lot of, okay, did I grow up in the right setting and so on? Unfortunately, it's still a bit the case, right? In some countries, a bit more than in others. But at the end, yeah, it's kind of about that.
Still more important to be at the right place than to do the right things.
Oh, yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you need to understand your environment is just so important. Mm-hmm. If you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people, it can just drag you down. Yeah. It can just drag you down.
Yeah.
But what I think is quite interesting about money as well, if we're staying in this topic for a little bit longer, and you mentioned billionaires. A lot of the billionaires, I realized they are money wealthy, but they're time poor. Mm-hmm. They don't have time.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
They are so caught up in so many things they need to do because society wants to get access to those people. They need to present themselves in the media in a certain way. That's why I think it's not even something that you should, or that I would, I'm not speaking for everyone here, just what I should, I wouldn't approach this. Never. It would never be a goal in my life to be time poor in the end, just to be money wealthy and being on the radar of people.
I think this is the first thing that most people learn as an entrepreneur, that yes, money is beautiful and everything is super nice, but at the same time, if you lose the time component, you have nothing. That's really, for me, that was a huge switch. At some point in life, I was really, as you also mentioned, I was in meetings, and I actually didn't have time to work. And as I mentioned, I love to build things. I really love to build things. And I was stuck on these meetings and on doing whatever and anything but the thing I actually love. And yes, the financial incentive was there, but you are much happier if you have much less money, but you can actually wake up and do what you love. Really, this is such a big thing. And yeah, you're right. Most people with a lot of money, they don't have this time component. And it's actually the most important. Once you have kids, what is there if you can't spend time with them, if you can't spend time with your partner, whatever?
It's life. Time is life.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's where the triangle of growth comes in for me. It's three things I always look out for. That's progress, balance, and joy. And I apply this to all the areas in my life. So I want to have progress in certain areas, but it shouldn't come at a cost of declining in other areas. So if I start declining in, let's say, finance, so I can improve my health, then I'm probably doing something completely wrong in the first place with health. But if I'm balancing too much and I'm not having significant progress in any of the areas, I think it's just a root of unhappiness in the end. And the joy part came in for me just lately because I realized, like, hey, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, why are you doing it in the first place, right? It's just such an obvious one. But if you're not waking up in the morning and you're feeling like, I'm hyped, I want to really get work done. I'm looking forward to meet these people. I'm looking forward to talk to you, Enrico, today. Like, if you're not hyped about your life, your own life, you're really doing something wrong.
It goes back to our lovely Derek Sivers, right?
Yeah.
If it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's like this progress, balance, joy part is something a lot of people are missing because they're either running for one of those areas. They're just trying to grind, work, getting things done, and completely miss the balance part, miss out on nurturing those relationships, missing out on taking care of their health. And if you have too much balance in life, like this modern Western yogi approach where you need to be centered all the time, you're probably never going to have meaningful impact in your life. Because to be honest, I mean, how many times did you need to do the hard things, and how many times did you need to fail in life?
Yeah.
It's like, if you never failed in life, you never scratch the surface or the ceiling of your potential. It's impossible. You're just playing it safe.
Any optimization comes from failing first. Yeah. If you don't fail, you don't learn. If you don't learn, you can't optimize, and then it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a hard truth, I think.
Hard truth.
Yeah.
A really hard truth, and it is as well something that I would argue correlates with quantity. And this therefore means quality comes with quantity. And oftentimes, whatever you're doing in life, you need to get better with decision making. You need to become faster with decision making. And in the end, it's about your clarity. Clarity is something that only comes after action.
Yeah. And it kind of goes into this control kind of concept, because most people, they chase money, but in reality, they should kind of chase the much more control and also much more clarity in their life, because then the other things just come right away. Like what would be your advice if someone is really so focused on the money and doesn't have control over time, doesn't have clarity of purpose, doesn't have so many other things? What would be like, looking at these 4 things, the workflow you would recommend for those people who are really starting at complete zero? Is there like an action plan? Is there like steps of things you can do to actually start on that journey? Is maybe also, are there online resources? Whom should they listen to? Which books should they read? Like, imagine everything you know now, kind of encapsulating all of that in one workflow, in one answer. Could you try to do that?
Yeah, sure.
It's going to be hard, right?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
Even better.
Create your own setup.
What is a
And
setup?
a setup is just, instead of doing your vision board, this time you're taking a piece of paper, you're writing down all the games you want to participate on. Your pillars, it doesn't need to be mine.
So you have those 4, but it might be completely
Can
different.
be completely
for
different.
Else.
Take yours,
okay,
whatever it is. But please take health seriously. Like, that's just some components are just a must-have. Like, try to draw something. Draw those systems, like those. Just draw a couple of circles. I'm playing the health game. I'm playing the relationship game. I'm playing the family game, the romance game, the money game, the status game, whatever it is. And then consciously decide which games you're going to play. Take a green marker, for example, and those are the games that you're consciously playing. The status game, you can mark, for example, red, because you're not consciously playing it. That doesn't mean you are not playing it, because you cannot say you're not playing the status game, because people are still going to judge you based on what car you drive, what clothes you wear, what watch you wear, all those kind of things. But you can consciously decide to not play that game. So mark it red, for example. Decide for yourself. Then start interconnecting those things. For example, your relationships. You have friends. Can you work out with those guys? Because that's a leverage with your health system that you could use. So you're using people as a leverage to get healthier and to build relationship at the same time. Then you could use money, for example, to get a coach. That coach could help get you a new skill. So you learn how to work out, you learn about nutrition, you learn about finance, whatever it is, or you get an executive coach for your business, and you start learning new things, and you at the same time build a relationship, and at the same time you have personal growth. Amazing, right? So you start interconnecting those kind of things. But then you need to figure out as well, are there certain contradictions? Because everyone has 168 weeks, 168 hours in a week. So where do you apply your time, your life? And breaking it down again, you need to understand what are the rules? What are the rules of health? What are the rules of relationship? What are the rules of finance? What do I need to understand first to play that game correctly? Then you have action items for every system. So I'm meeting with my wife, I'm meeting with this person, I'm working out every second day or every day. Then the third one you can use is leverage. Can I use leverage in one of those systems? Am I able to? Can I apply technology to health? Can I apply money to health? Can I apply those different things? And we already talked about this in extensively. And once you have those systems interconnected, you start to decide, and then probably take a different kind of color. You start marking down what you would like to work on the next 12 weeks. Because remember, probably after 6 months, you're not going to follow through with your goals or your wishes. I call them wishes because oftentimes you're not going to be successful with those. And then get specific. So what would you like to achieve? Get very specific in those areas. And that's where you could use ChatGPT or Grok if there's a lack of creativity in this moment or a lack of knowledge that you don't know what you should achieve. So then ask ChatGPT, like, I'm this weight, this size, this height, this age, this gender, and I would like to achieve this. What could be some interesting habit I could implement?
And especially compare with the different LLMs. Sometimes you really completely different recommendations from ChatGPT versus Grok versus Gemini versus whatever. I have all of those open and you ask all of them. And then you just pick whatever you like.
Yeah. And then you start executing. Because the thing is, I do this exercise every 12 weeks, but then I get into execution mode. I don't like reconsider all the time, like, should I now really go to the gym, or should I now really eat healthy, or should I now really invest my money there? I don't try to contradict myself anymore, except I'm getting new information that I didn't have before. So I learned something that slightly changes my approach. And that's where my coach comes in, where I just talk to him.
But then how often do you check in on this? So, okay, you have your 12 weeks. Yes, you replan it every 12 weeks. It might change, and that's okay. You check in every day on these things.
Every week.
Every week. So once a week.
Once a week. I plan.
Early of the week, end of the week.
End of the week.
End of the week.
End of the week.
Saturday, Sunday, or Friday?
So for us Europeans, it's not even all Europeans, but it's Sunday. So for some, it's the end of the week. For some, it's the beginning of the week.
Exactly. That's a weird concept. No.
That's
how the hell can a week start on Sunday?
Yeah,
sick people, really. Anyway, okay.
It's like feet, stones.
Yes, no, I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's once a week. Because remember, it's a whole month that's happening. I'm planning a whole month in this week.
And how many goals per game you play you set for that month, which is basically a week?
1 to 3.
1 to 3.
Yeah, not more. Because you need to be able to execute on those. And that's the thing, because if you start building a year's plan, I think it's super difficult for me to understand, like, do I even have enough time to execute to reach the result that I would like to achieve? I think that's such a difficult exercise then. But if you ask me, like, is it possible to lose 6 kilograms of body fat within a year? Yes, it's possible. So what should be possible then within 12 weeks? So can I lose around 150 grams per week or 100 grams per week And then you calculate how many kilograms of body fat you could lose, but then you already know how much you can lose per week. So you calculate based on those numbers, start setting get your nutrition right, get your workout right, set your investment plan, and also try to automate. I mean, there's so many things you can automate nowadays. I mean, there are things you shouldn't automate. That's creativity. There is a space for unstructured things in life. But even for those kind of topics, I usually try to take out a couple of hours every week to stay creative.
Time blocked is on your calendar, or how does it work?
Yes.
Yeah. Then you turn off everything else and you just think.
I think. I sit there, I think. Sometimes I tried to draw once. That didn't work out because I'm horrible at this. Play the guitar. Completely different things.
Then I like the notion of checking in once a week, focusing on a small set of tasks. Probably that's actually one concept that is also worth mentioning. You can really get things done by just focusing on the most important thing, whatever is pressing this week. And actually, this is the management style of Elon Musk. He has so many different companies. Most people are overwhelmed with one, but he has 5, 6, 7, 8, right, of really big companies. And it's not by micromanaging everywhere. It's by once a week or whatever, checking in with the company, asking, what is the one big problem you're facing right now that is kind of hindering your excellence in this specific thing? And he tries to solve it with them. That's all he's doing, I think. And this at scale seems to get you really the results. And also for me, I mean, I try to apply it on a much smaller scale, right? But still, what's the one thing you can do this week on this specific project and focus on that and try to delegate the other things, or try not to do them at all? What will happen?
Yeah.
What's going to happen if you just archive that email?
Identify the bottlenecks and execute on those.
Exactly.
And I think one thing that's quite interesting about the bottleneck that you just mentioned with Elon Musk is even thinking about elimination. Because oftentimes it comes down to eliminating things in your life, and that actually brings you further, that brings you growth. So let's say with working out, instead of thinking about should I work out today or I work out 3 times a day, just put it in your calendar: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m. I go to the gym. No thinking. You don't need to, because there's only a certain capacity every day that you have to think about and figure out if you want to do something and follow through. And that's a concept I've heard about years ago. One is like you have to look at yourself as if you have several identities. And the 7 a.m. Enrico is not the same as the 7 p.m. Enrico. The 7 a.m. Enrico would go to the gym. The 7 p.m. Enrico doesn't.
That's so true.
And you need to figure out how many identities you have and what kind of characteristics they have.
Yeah. I never thought about this, but it's true. Sometimes in the evening, you're either hyper productive or hyper unproductive. And then you say, if you're like in hyper productive mood, you say, hey, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to just do it tomorrow. And then you wake up and you're in a completely different mood, and kind of you missed on this deep grind, on this deep focus, work time, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. So it's really, you need to play in your energy. It's not about time management, it's about energy management. And it's about understanding, what can I do in the morning? What can I do at lunchtime? When do I take my meetings? This is a disease of our time. People take meetings where there are 50 people in those meetings and no one is actually paying attention and no one is contributing. If you're not, imagine if you're the CEO of a company, you should say, and that's how I do it. If there's 50 people in the meeting, or 20, or even 10, even more than 5, honestly, and they're not contributing, you are losing me money. You're wasting the money of this company, this precious money, because time is money at the end when you look at an employee. So really encouraging people, don't do meetings. Record a Loom video, send a quick note, try to solve it asynchronously. It doesn't work always, but 90% of the times it will work. And that's actually, we should really go away from this meeting culture and, oh yeah, let's sync up on this and so on. No, just go out and do it.
Didn't Jeff Bezos say communication is a sign of dysfunction?
I think so. Yeah, something like this. Yeah.
It comes down to the meetings,
right.
because he's absolutely right. The meetings are only needed to sync up, or to get security about the topic, because information from someone else, because you don't have it. So it's about information theory again in the end, right? How do you structure your business so the information flows?
And I'm pretty sure if you're smart, you can handle a 20 people team with a 30-minute meeting a week. Pretty sure. One hour at most. If really everyone is prepared, you have one shared knowledge base, everything is clear to everyone, you really use the time to collaborate on the most pressing things, and everything else, just figure it out as asynchronously. You can do that.
Yeah, and I would also recommend looking at Dunbar numbers. It's like 5, 15, 50, 150, I think, those kind of numbers, because usually it's your business, and also in life, the structure changes. So if you're 5 people, you don't need extensive processes or anything, and everything works smooth. But after a certain amount, it's not exactly 15, but probably it's 12 or something. There's a new team dynamic. You're not one team anymore. Suddenly you're 2 teams. Doesn't mean you're not working together, but you need processes, you need certain rules, you need certain regulations, and it starts with 50, you need something completely different. So always think about like changing as well the measures of success for your business, because in the past, a lot of company owners are always like telling you how many employees they have. I think this number nowadays is completely irrelevant. They're completely especially with the game of AI now. I think the new game is ARR per employee.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's the game they're playing, and speed, economy of speed. It's not about economy of scale anymore. It's economy of speed.
How does that tie in? Because I heard you once in a previous conversation we had, you said kind of these old school work or life paths, they don't work anymore. How should people behave? What should people do in this day and age? Because I agree, like the time you can replace a development team of 10 people with one probably not so smart product owner, stuff's changing.
Yeah.
Like what should people do actually? Like which niche, because you also have kind of a bit of an AI background, which niches you think will still be there? My opinion is probably we'll go back to really the handyman jobs. Those will be rich people soon. Rich people. So in a way, I mean, you used to be at the very, very beginning, right? That was kind of how you started. So maybe you can do a full circle at the very end.
Yeah, maybe I will. I think you're absolutely right, because that's something that's more difficult to exchange, and probably will come with time as well with robots. So it's more about how do you structure life and work in general in the future. That's probably the right question. But the traditional career path of you're going to school, then going to university, and then starting at a company, then you're working there for the rest of your life is going to be very rare, because I think job security in the next 10 to 15 years won't be the same as it was probably 40, 50 years ago. And companies that exist for more than 30 or 50 years or 100 years, they will disappear slowly. And the most, like, especially in Switzerland, we have a lot of small to mid-cap companies, which is and was the advantage of Switzerland in the past, but they will encounter more competition from small companies, from 5-person, 10-person companies that will compete with them thanks to technology as a leverage. and they are having 50, 100, 200 people on the payroll. And the thing is, even if you would go as far as saying like, let's just fire 80% of the staff, which most people wouldn't because of a value perspective, you need to figure out which of the 20% is actually the valuable people in your company. So it's so difficult to go through such a transformation shift. So that the competition for small to mid-cap companies will get intense in the future.
For me, it's the most beautiful thing in the world, because I can give you a very concrete example right now. In my medical AI company, we're basically co-developing like a piece of software with an old legacy system to then integrate that into their system, because a lot of our customers are also their customers. The details don't matter. And today I was just on the phone with them, and we basically were able to develop this thing with our five people development team, right? In a week. And they were like looking at me in this meeting, and they're like, "What the hell, Enrico? How the hell did you do this?" You know? And then I asked the questions. Great, guys. When are we gonna release this from your end? And it's a company with around, I think, 300 people. And they told me now is March, and they told me our next release will be September this year. September. And for us, it's a huge bottleneck, of course, because our customers are waiting for this. We were able to, with our small team, develop the exact same component within literally 5 days. Literally 5 days. I'm not exaggerating here. 5 freaking days. And they are telling me the deadline for them will be September. And you know what's going to happen with those companies? They will get flooded off the market. They will leave. They will never be able to survive. We will be able to, or any entrepreneur. Now is the time of the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs can shine right now. You know, if you can build a team of 5 smart people, if you can find 5 smart people and build something meaningful, you will be able to compete with people with 200 people, 300 people, 500 people. Better quality, faster, more efficient, thanks to AI. And this, for me, I mean, I get goosebumps even when I just say this. This is the most incredible time to be alive, I think.
You're eliminating literally the bottleneck, and the bottleneck is another company.
But then at the same time, it's beautiful for us entrepreneurs. What happens to all these people? I'm not kidding. What happens when you now can build a company with 5 people, thanks to leveraging really smart AI in your system? What before took 200 people. The best answer I've found so far is that, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's the best answer I've heard so far, is that really, thanks to AI, we'll have so much more output. So really, basically the money output of the whole economic system will just grow rapidly, which will let us fund basically like universal basic income stuff, UBI stuff, and people will not work so much anymore. If they want, they can, but it will just look completely different, I think. And that's probably a mechanism we will need to really, not let the people fall who are going to get replaced by 5 smart young people.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship is not just entrepreneurship. Everything in life comes down to network. You just need to think about who you're working with, how you work together, because if you have the right people in a team, you can, even a mediocre idea or a mediocre product, it will fly with almost certainty. You can have the best product on earth. If you don't have the right people in your team, it's just so difficult to get this thing off the ground.
At the end, it's people, and that's the great news, I guess. Yes, AI is beautiful, AI is fast, AI is smart, but at the end, you still need really cool people, really smart people who actually use it, and I think that will never go away, honestly.
No, I think that's also something that I think it comes back to is you need to be able to relearn. Relearning. If there's one thing people need to be able to do is like relearn things.
And
unlearn. And unlearn.
Yeah.
That's what relearning is including, right? You need to learn new things at the cost oftentimes of unlearning something that you thought was right until this point. Even probably listening to this conversation in 5 years or 10 years, you will definitely listen to this and think like, why the hell did I say this?
We're going to be so wrong on so many things.
Yeah.
But at the end, if you don't take the step and actually try, the answer is going to be no anyway, you know? So you need to make assumption, need to go out and actually do it. Yes, looking back in 5 years, so many things will be wrong and different and whatever. But I think it shouldn't hinder you from the actual action, you know?
Take a position and clarity comes after action.
Yeah. I think we couldn't find any better words to wrap up this conversation. Maurice, thank you so much. That was really insightful, really interesting. We might even need to have a part 2 at some point. So the invitation is already here. And it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.